Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds.
The truth shall set you free. You can't handle the truth. We came, we saw, we kicked its ass.
That's not how the Force works. Oh, really? You're cold?
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
I'd buy that for $1.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Hasta la vista, baby.
I don't have friends. I got family.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Hello and welcome to the Creative Control Movie Podcast. I'm your host, Kenan, and thank you for joining us for our latest episode. This week, we're going to be talking about The Batman and what's next. So our Creative Control team is going to discuss what they would do with the franchise moving forward, whether it's a sequel, trilogy, or even beyond. We're going to talk what characters we might bring in, storylines, and we'll even do some fan casting as well to say who we'd like for them to appear as these characters in the movies going forward. Joining me on today's show, we have Lee, Sacha, and Neil. How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing good. And yourself?
Very well, thank you.
I am good. I'm still riding off the high that was Batman. You know, it was like a month ago. It's such a great movie, and it's been working in my head a little bit in the background, like what I want to see moving forward. And so I didn't want to jump on it too quickly because I wanted it to marinate, you know, and just, you know, have a real think about what I want from this franchise. So what we'll do is we'll start off to say, what would maybe be the next storyline or villain that you'd introduce into this franchise? So, does anybody want to go first in particular?
I'd introduce Egghead. And
He
King
wants
Tut,
the Nick Cage.
and King Tut, because they've been seriously underused since the 1960s. Even in the comics, they don't even show up. Come on, man, Egghead. Who'd we get? Who'd we get as Egghead? Patrick Stewart.
Okay. So for the casual audience who have no idea who Egghead is, Sacha, do you know who Egghead is?
Yeah, he was like some egg-headed guy played by Vincent Price. He was a criminal. He had a mustache.
Criminal genius.
Yeah, actually, J.K. Simmons would be great. He has a tash and he has a bald head. He'd be great. Him, or you could do a darker version of him because this is the Batman. You could get the guy from Breaking Bad. What's his name?
Oh, Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, get Bryan Cranston as Egghead, man. Make it and just change up that story. Make him some proper kingpin or something that just likes Cadbury's cream eggs or some bullshit.
Did he give himself the name Egghead?
I don't even know whether the guy had a backstory. He was just bald in a suit. He was Vincent Price.
He claimed himself to be like the smartest criminal, didn't he? He was like, I think he was like a professor or something like that. Well, I don't really know much about the character because, like you say, he was created in the 60s. I think the last time he was really the last time he was used was like in the 90s.
Was he used in the 90s?
Apparently.
Okay. And King Tut?
Shadow of the Bat story arc.
Okay. So, King Tut? What about anyone for King Tut? The pharaoh-looking guy, had the little pharaoh chin. Don't remember him. He kind of looked like Sid James. But anyway, what you could do with
Meaty Boy from Stargate.
You could have a mob boss. You could have one of the Gotham mob boss, and he goes a bit cuckoo, he goes a bit crazy, and he thinks he's from ancient times and stuff, and keeps referring to his goons and stuff as like, I don't know, like Ramesses and all of this shit. I don't know anything about Egyptian mythology, but Neil can write it because he's into Egyptian mythology, and there we go. We just make it into a gangster and so original characters. Ish.
Yeah, King Tut was created for the 60s TV show.
Yeah.
So he was actually created for that show, not for the comics or anything like that. But so yeah, he was a professor of Egyptology at Yale University, and he suffered a head injury. Due to his head trauma, he became convinced that he was a reincarnation of King Tutankhamun and started using ancient Egypt-themed crimes to reinstate the Egyptian empire.
Wow.
So there we go. Bring back.
I'm not quite sure it fits in with the Matt Reeves Batman universe, but
you know, you might not
imagine that.
We're creative control.
Changed.
We're creative control. We reboot that mythology, man. We make it fit in that universe somehow. Everyone's into ethnic minorities. Let's make him Egyptian. Get our Egyptian friends in. Oh, we can make him Turkish.
Well, look, I'll say this, right?
Saying that Gotham's flooded, isn't it? So he could come in on a boat or something.
On a little barge.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Just came in.
He starts trying to separate the water and shit.
Oh god.
Okay.
Obviously, that's not who I'd actually pick, but come back to me on who I'd actually pick. But go on.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll take it more down the tone and serious note of the franchise, but no.
Wait,
so I think for me,
crazy one.
Oh, go on then.
I got one more. The ventriloquist guy. Was it?
All right.
The
ventriloquist?
The
ventriloquist.
dummy with the
man.
with the Tommy gun.
Yeah, get that guy, man.
Where the dummy's alive. Oh,
yeah.
Why can't I remember the name?
Can't remember the name, but I remember seeing that on that animated series, and I was just like, "Oh
yeah."
my God.
No, it was called the ventriloquist. It was called the ventriloquist.
Get the ventriloquist in there.
Yeah.
Get Jim Carrey. Oh, he's retired.
I don't think that's a silly idea. That was one of the ones I was considering, to be honest, because you basically got this psychopath who basically talks to himself or through a third person through this dummy. I don't see that as that could be really creepy if it's done really well. So I don't necessarily think that's a silly thing at all. The dummy doesn't have to be alive or anything like that, but it is just another voice for him that he has got basically the split personality. And in order for both his personalities to exist at the same time, one transfers his consciousness almost to the dummy. So he actually communicates with himself that way. So you see how they're doing like Moon Knight, where he's talking to himself in mirrors and stuff like that. It's basically the two voices, and one's coming from him and the other he does from the dummy. That could be creepy as hell. That could be fun. So now I'm down for that.
See, when I chat shit, something really happens sometimes.
Something happens, yeah. Something.
Listen,
remember last time I chat shit, we got the fucking Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield team up. So you know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Yeah,
who knows?
It's true. For me, there's a few themes that I would want to play out through this trilogy, and the first movie was very much about control of Gotham and who's operating it and stuff like that. I think that leads very much directly into the Court of Owls, who basically is this elite society who's been controlling Gotham from the very beginning. And you know, for me, there'd be very much like a faceless organization, and even if you did have individuals that you meet, they would never have a face. They'd always be behind a mask or whatever it is. So that is something that would kind of play in the background over a few movies. Because they also have their own assassins, which Talons, I think they're called.
Yeah, Talons.
In the comics. Talons, sorry. So
the main one is Talon.
Talon, right. So what they often did is the Court of Owls would actually abduct child performers from the circus to train them up as assassins. So I would have it that basically one of these assassins and Batman basically have a fight. And that assassin ends up being Robin. So he's been abducted from the circus. His parents have died. He's obviously going to the wrong crowd. He's trying to make his way up. And, you know, Batman then basically takes him under his wing, so to speak, and, you know, trains him up to be Robin. And I think we really need a decent Robin. And I'm talking sort of like a, you know, like 14 to 17-year-old Robin, like a young boy. You know, I don't want this man-child like Chris O'Donnell or anything like that. The other thing that I think definitely leads into this franchise is the Hush storyline. So, spoilers, if you may want to skip ahead by about a minute and a half. But basically, Hush storyline is about a close friend of Bruce Wayne who was growing up, who was also basically a orphan. And he grows up, Thomas Elliot, and he grows up to sort of like hate Bruce Wayne because of what he became and his money and wealth and all this kind of stuff. And I won't go too much into the storyline, but basically in the first movie, the reporter who Thomas Wayne has murdered or who was supposed to be intimidated is called Edward Elliot. So I would see Thomas Elliot as being his son and him going for revenge against the Waynes. because his Bruce Wayne's had his father killed, or that's what he believes. So I think that definitely plays out into it. I think that can be done really, really well. And the Hush is just like super intelligent. He's like ahead of Batman at every step, kind of thing. And I think even in the comics, he's covered in bandages. He also even tries to make him look like Bruce Wayne and stuff like that. He has surgery and stuff. So that could be really creepy. And obviously, the Hush comes from the fact that all over the Batman it said Hush, like hush money that was tried to be paid towards Edward Elliot to stop him talking about Martha and stuff like that. So I think that could play out really well. I would definitely have sort of like a Harvey Dent installed. We're going to have like loads of stuff going on with Territory maybe in the next movie, because obviously the water is around Gotham and stuff like that. So you need somebody coming in to try and tackle these criminals. And I'd also try and build up Harvey Dent over 2 movies before he turns. So you have like a trilogy. So where you have the buddy cop relationship with him and Gordon, you then throw Dent in there. So it's the trio of them, similar to what we got in the Dark Knight, which is over a longer period. So he's more fighting a friend than someone he's kind of just met and then, he's great, I love him, and now I'm conflicted. You could definitely throw Hugo Strange in there, someone in the background, someone working in Arkham Asylum as a psychiatrist. That could play out really well. In terms of the main villains, I want to see a Mr. Freeze done really well. I think that could be, done so well on screen. And it doesn't have to be the fantastical, huge, big ice guns. We can talk about cryogenic science and all that kind of stuff. I kind of revert back to like James Bond, the man with the golden gun, where like the devil is just painted in gold. They could just be just generally frozen. He's figured out a way to do it. I would actually have the way that I would kind of generate the Mr. Freeze character is pretty much how Batman vs. Superman picked up off the end of Man of Steel. My next sequel is I would go back to the bombs explosions and the flooding, and basically Victor Freeze could be working on his wife at that point, and the flooding happens, and he has to cryogenically freeze her like mid-operation to save her life, and then it's about him battling to try and save her, kind of thing. So it takes off straight from where there is, and then you create your character straight off the bat with an origin story. Another smaller character which I think could work really well is the Mad Hatter, with the hypnosis and him hypnotizing people to commit acts of violence and crimes and stuff like that for his benefit. I think that would play out really well with the Batman in terms of him having to take these people out but not hurt them, like pull his punches and stuff because they're not in control. And the other character that I would introduce as kind of a new love interest is, and this would play out for a couple of movies and then switch in maybe the 4th, is Andrea Beaumont, who ends up, well, basically if you've seen The Mask of the Phantasm, then you know. But yeah, I would introduce Andrea Beaumont as a love interest to really build the relationship up. So when we find out and discover that she does become a Phantasm, and they have that conflict, it's much richer than trying to do it all in one movie. So those are the kind of things I want to see in the next few films. I'll talk about like casting ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of where I would see this as like at least 4-5 movies if I could. If Patterson, I've got creative control, so I would have it sort of like 4 or 5 movies rather than just a trilogy, because you can't wrap up really detailed storylines in a trilogy and really get to the core character roots. So,
are you done hacking into my computer?
Oh, sorry, bro. Hey, this is why I say go first.
No, I felt very, very much along some of those lines. Yeah, I basically wanted roughly 6 Batman movies. So we've got the one, so like 5 more to come. Like everything would build up to certain things, and it would be tying things together. So the Court of Owls would be basically the underlining, the hidden big bad, the hidden hand would be
the long game.
But it's like bit by bit. I mean, I know it sounds very kind of like James Bond-esque. We're shoehorning everything ever bad that's happened to Batman has happened because of. But if that's the plan that you're going with from movie 2, knowing you've got 6 movies to make, then you're going to do it better. You're not going to just shoehorn, oh, this character was with that character. No, it's like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Court of Owls would be the grand finale. And but they would appear twice. They would appear like roughly in the middle. So if we've got 6, they turn up in movie 3 and then again in movie 6. Like, your idea for Robin was almost identical to what I had.
Oh, really?
Which was that it's not his biological son, but he takes him on, and he's young enough that he basically is just like, oh, when he basically takes the kid in, and it's like, he takes the kid in and he's like, oh, you've already been trained, so that's half the battle won. But your outlook is, oh, there's a bad guy, let me kill him because you think you're doing good. And I would have it that at the end of that, he'd be like, oh, you need a name. And he was like, they called me Damien. That's okay. Well, now your name is Damian Wayne.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So it's like, you need a last name. So it's like movies 4, 5, and 6 will serve as in like, okay, we're seeing Damien adjust from starting out being an assassin and everything is lethal, lethal finality, to becoming a hero and trying to follow on the road of Batman, who himself, after what we've seen in The Batman, is himself learning that I can't just be vengeance. I need to be a bit more hopeful.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because in the Batman, you have him, the way he looks at that child, the mayor candidate who gets murdered, you see him a couple of times. What happens after this movie is, he has to grow that maturity, and he realizes he needs that alter ego, and he starts developing that Bruce Wayne persona. Yeah. But then also having to take on a young person as responsibility, that'll make him grow up quicker and have to have that dual side to him. And I think that would really, I like the idea of Damien, so I was thinking more like Dick Grayson or Jason Todd, but I like the idea of him sort of like being adopted as opposed to birthright, because I don't want to touch the Ra's al Ghul stuff in my in my one. I'd keep all that out, so I'd be more than happy for him not to be the biological. So that makes a lot of sense. I like that.
Also, I would have, so like when you were thinking about Mr. Freeze, I didn't have what your origin of him was, which was he has to cryogenically throw. That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
But what I did have was he was a criminal, and what he was doing was he would either inject someone. He's given the name Mr. Freeze because he would, like, if he's committing a crime, he'll inject someone with something which paralyzes them, which freezes them.
Nice. I like that.
So they're stuck there while he's doing whatever he's doing to them. So, like, if he's torturing them,
it could be an injection, it could be in a drink. It basically poisons it. They ingest it some way.
Right. So I had that, and that's how he gets the name Mr. Freeze. It doesn't necessarily need to be like, oh, I'm going to actually freeze you.
Yeah.
Right. Because he
could drive around in an ice cream truck.
Yes.
You know what? That's not a bad idea, because that's not a bad idea, because
you could that sound could be really chilling. That dun 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 dun. People are like, oh shit.
Because the thing is, it's not a bad idea, because what you then have is you can have it that at some point in that movie where Mr. Freeze is the villain, you can have people basically start, because Gotham ain't a nice place to begin with. So imagine if people started jumping and assaulting ice cream men. Right? So it's like, this, and in other news, another ice cream truck was vandalized today with another driver being hospitalized. And it's like, okay.
Maybe some of his targets, he actually targets them outside in their out of the comfort zone. So, in their comfort zone. So when they're out with their families, you know, he's giving ice creams to the kids and stuff like that, and it says to the parent, "Oh, you know, how about one for yourself?" Like, no, go on, it's on the house, and that's laced with a chemical which is time released and ends up paralyzing him later on. So
there's
he
that.
could be doing it straight out of the van, some creepy ass van shit. Yeah.
But for other villains, I wanted two, like I wanted obviously Court of Owls, or the Owls to be the main overarching villain. But each movie we have different villains. So we've had the Riddler.
Yeah.
At some point we would have the Joker. I would save him for like movie 4. Because I'm like, I don't want to see the Joker until Batman has been built up to such a degree as a character inside the world. He's not in year 2 and he's in training. This is like year 10 Batman in his prime, you know, everything's clicking. And then he's given, here's the Joker who totally, you know, turns your world upside down, because for all your rules and all your logic, he is complete opposite.
Yeah, I would almost have my Joker as the Nick Fury of the Rogues Gallery. So basically he appears in just post-credit scenes, and each of Batman's villains that he defeats, he gets them on board as a coalition,
because
and gather them all together.
Yeah, because one of my movies, I wanted it to be, or basically probably the one with the Joker, I wanted it to be a version of Arkham Asylum. Yeah,
exactly. That's why I would take the 5th movie. So he builds up all the villains for the next 4 films, and then in the final one is Court of Owls, and everything comes out, because I probably have Thomas Wayne as being a former member of the Court of Owls. Yeah, and that's where his link is to it, and that's why it's so ingrained and stuff. And you know, he has to protect his father's name and all the stuff. You know, the Wayne name plays into it a lot. But I'm the same. I don't want to see any Joker movie for at least another 2 movies. Yeah, at least. The villains, but I would be fine with him in post-credit scenes.
Yeah, but the villains I did want to see, I wanted to see, and originally I wanted to see Deathstroke.
I had that down.
But I feel like Deathstroke is, in one way he's perfect, in another way he's too perfect. Right? So I wanted something a bit more personal. I wanted Azazel.
Yes.
Right? I wanted Azazel to turn up as, like, basically Azazel is a former, you know, my version of Azazel, he's a former soldier, military man, so he has the training. He's from Gotham. He's completely inspired by Batman. And he's like, I'm going to be a version of Batman. The Court of Owls come across him, and they're like, you know what? You want to be better than Batman? We can help. And they're like, and they basically build him up in the background to the point that, like, a bunch of criminals get murdered, and they're like, "Oh, has Batman finally gone over the edge because he doesn't kill?" And they'll be like, "No, it can't be Batman." They'll be like, "Oh, but look at the way this happened." When they're investigating it, they're like, "He came through the window. He needed a grappling hook to do that. He needed this." It's like all the tricks and traits that we know from Batman are being used by Azazel, and Azazel is basically committing these crimes against criminals, and police are starting to believe it's Batman doing it.
Okay.
And then there's the confrontation between him and Batman, where it's like he thinks he's doing good and that Batman's not doing enough. And I think that would work wonderfully, because he would basically, like, you could put Robin, Damian in between them, because Robin would be like, he's not wrong. You know, he's killing these criminals. And then that could cause a nice little rift. It'll be, a nice little bit of drama between Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Well, it's like what Peacemaker says, it's like, how many people is Batman responsible for killing? He's putting these guys away. They break out of prison. They kill more people. So you can understand Damian's argument. Like, what are you doing? You keep putting the Joker away. He keeps coming out and killing more people. End him. End the violence.
Because that's it.
Did you have any other characters you wanted to bring?
So yeah, it was Azazel, the Court of Owls, Robin, Mr. Freeze. Essentially, that was kind of my cherry pick, because I had an idea for someone like Poison Ivy, but it would be like, as much as it pains me to say this, a real world version of, or not even real world, but a dark, twisted version of all these characters. So it's Mr. Freeze hasn't got a ray gun and doesn't use ice puns. Azazel, there's a reason why he is the way he is. Robin, there's a reason he's the way he is. Like, I've taken a criminal like Poison Ivy, and just basically she's like a bioterrorist. She's a botanist.
Yeah.
So, it's things like that.
Yeah, because someone I really wanted to see live action, but it just won't work in this universe, is sort of like Clayface. It's just a bit too fantastical, unless you have somebody who specializes in masks as opposed to the actual clay element. But then then you're just messing with the character too much, and it'll just piss people off. So, but I think Clayface in this universe potentially just won't work yet.
The funny thing is, I don't think that would be the case. Anything you do would piss people off. Like, that's just the world. That's the world that we've evolved into. So I think someone like Clayface could work, because even if it's just like, oh, it's the masks, it's. I mean, you think of something like Mission Impossible. Every time they're yanking off the mask,
that was kind of my reference. Yeah,
we're not that far removed from it. You think of things like what was that film that came? Drive, when he's like the stunt driver, right? And he wears just that silicone bald head. It's things like that work. It's if you adjust it for the world that you've created, I think things can work.
Yeah. Cool. Lee, what about yourself? What do you want to see from the next Batman films?
Well, I haven't got the sort of Batman knowledge that you guys have got. I do like the sound of your ideas, though, so I'd be happy to go along with them. From my position, I think the first movie was good. I'm still not sure whether I'm too keen on the ending, but it is what it is now. That's happened. But I do feel there's a lot of storylines that could come off of that. So I do like the idea of what Neil said about like the Joker being like, top dog, and I think we should start off with maybe smaller characters, a few henchmen, that might be causing on the uprising, because obviously Gotham's in bits at the moment. There's a few storylines there where, like you say, power play and stuff like that. But I'd also like to see more. I know obviously we love seeing Batman for most of the movie, but I would like to see more of him, sort of like the Bruce Wayne element of it, and maybe even if, like say, Harvey Dent came in, maybe to try and support Gotham, or to try and rebuild it, but obviously had another agenda. Now, whether that happened during, what happened at the end of the first film, or whether he comes in, or that part of him story has been told and he sort of comes in as Two-Face. I'm not sure, but there's definitely, I think, something there. So just like smaller characters with like maybe hidden agendas, and say some henchmen that are causing him problems, but having Bruce Wayne come in a bit more. And like you say, at the end of the film, I think he did kind of start to notice that he might need to be both.
The hope and the fear.
Yeah, but I definitely like the Court of Owls thing, where this, and it could be that they're running. I don't know the history of them, and I don't know how they relate to other villains. So I think that's the sort of problem, is that all the villains seem to be individual. They don't seem to like run as a group. So that's why every Batman film is like, Batman and a villain, Batman and a villain. It's just like, it'd be nice to sort of have maybe 2 or 3 different villains, and like you say, maybe the Court of Owls are running some of those.
I think the idea is the Court of Owls are running it, but they don't even know they're being manipulated. I think that's the beauty of it. So all these villains are working individually, but they're all got their own assigned tasks from the Court of Owls, but they're so above everything else that they don't even realize they're being put and placed in those directions to make things happen or given the resources and stuff like that. There's just a very hidden identity, right up until the end.
Yeah.
So
as you like I think the second film kind of it can't go from it's building a world, isn't it? And I just feel that you don't want to overstep it now. It's like the next film should be like Gotham's in bits, and like you say, I think there should be a power play where there's people taking advantage of the state that Gotham's in, and he's obviously got to be there to clear up the mess. I do like, as Neil was talking about, like you could bring up some copycats because obviously now he's Batman, he's in the limelight. People are seeing him, thinking, that's vigilante or otherwise. People can dress up and go out and do stuff, and so I think that would be good to see in the second film. And there's so much potential there. So hopefully they get it right. But some really good ideas from you guys.
Cool. Sacha, have you had any more thoughts? Are you with us?
Oh, I do have my microphone on. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I was like looking to turn it on, but I think we all more or less agree it should be about the uprising and who should go to grasp the power. For me, I kind of always said it should be. Look, I was excited about what Ben Affleck was trying to do with the Batman, with his version of Batman, and I still am interested in that because that's more or less what the Arkham Origins game was. Literally, a key player had been taken out, and it was the gang war between the other bickering gangs. So obviously, you have Black Mask. Obviously, you have Deathstroke, and who else am I missing? Deadshot as well.
We got Deadshot, Penguin. Yeah.
You'd have Penguin and throwing King Tut. I'm not even kidding. You know what I mean? Let's adapt that shit. That's for the bonus round player.
There are ways that he could work.
There are ways
that
he
could
could
easily work.
He got hit on the head, etc. He was some mob enforcer that ended up going stir crazy and managed to inherit a fucking crime organization or something like that. But he's just a crazy motherfucker kind of thing.
That's what Riddler did. Riddler just got followers. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't have it. I wouldn't have him as a main player. He'd probably have as much time as Black Mask. But really, the main enemies of Batman would be the people that represent those major players, if that makes sense. AKA Deathstroke and Deadshot. And I'd even throw in the Electrocutioner in there as well. I mean, they've shown although it's grounded, he still has the electric gloves. You could throw in the Electrocutioner as a bad guy that works for one of these mob bosses. And in the background, you could put in Anarchy kind of thing, causing anarchy beneath the scenes for Gotham, because Gotham's a very broken place. And you just you probably play that storyline into the next movie. But what I would do at the end of this movie, while all this power play goes on, I would actually have Penguin as an informant, not to the cops, because he doesn't tell the cops, but he'll tell the Bat. So they have like a uneasy alliance, which is built on from the last film. But what I would do as a big twist at the end of the movie is that Penguin's playing the Bat the whole time to do his dirty work. If that makes sense.
Take out the competition.
Exactly. And then at the end of the movie, like there's a new player in town, but they don't know who he is and who the hidden mob boss is. And it's the guy that's under all their noses the whole time. It is the Penguin. Yeah. Just no one's there to confirm it. I would do something like that. So he's got all his fingers in the pie. He's acting in plain sight kind of thing.
He's almost the Penguin plus this other character. So he still holds his position as the Penguin underneath this master controller, but he is that person as well.
Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah. So that's what I would do with Penguin, because I'd like to see a following thread from the last movie personally, especially for the first 3 films, because if that sets it up for the third film and Penguin is the guy, You know what I mean? That ultimately leads to his downfall. And I'd probably introduce Harvey Dent as well for that trio, if that makes sense, because they're going after the mob. That's a perfect time to bring in Dent. I personally wouldn't want to bring in a Robin just yet, not for the first 3 films anyway. Maybe later on down the line, because it's still year 2 of Batman, and I'd like Batman to be Batman for a couple of years before he decides, okay, I need a partner. You know what I mean? Just like,
yeah. He was Batman for a year before he got Robin.
Yeah. But I
agree. I wouldn't bring Robin in. Oh, sorry, Sacha, go on.
Yeah, I put it this way: all my favorite Batman films do not star Robin in them. Okay, and that's the majority of the Batman films. But I mean, I just feel that if you're gonna bring in Robin, you have to do it. You have to do it smartly. You have to develop it.
Yeah, there has to be a logical reason for it.
Yeah, exactly. Even if that means introducing Dick Grayson a movie before, but he's not Robin, he's just some kid staying with Bruce. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and then
that's
build
how I
it
do
up
it.
to the point. Build it up to the point where it's like, hey, I found the Batcave, or however the fuck he finds it in the comics. I don't know, but as long as it's not the same way as Batman Forever, which is
no, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Which is utter trash. But good for the kind of movie that it is. But come on, it wouldn't fit Matt Reeves' Batman. But that's the kind of Batman movie I'd want to see. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, the best Robin, like, if we're talking, like, lining up perfectly with Batman, or with this Batman, I'd probably say the best Robin would be, if not Damian, then Tim Drake, because Tim Drake is actually the only one who actually discovers Bruce Wayne is Batman by himself, devoid of everyone else. Dick Grayson, your parents are murdered, so now you become my ward. Jason Todd, I think he tries to steal the Batmobile, or he steals the wheels off the Batmobile, and that's how he gets drawn in. Tim Drake is the only one who is just like, he uses his head and he figures out things, and then he figures out that Bruce Wayne is Batman. So that's one way to sling it in.
It'd be nice to see Robin actually sort of build up the same way as Batman. So it's kind of like competition.
Well, you could,
Robin's clearing up, and Batman's like thinking, "Shit, this guy's like putting me to shame."
There is a little bit of that there is a little bit of that in Robin Year One. So he did a Robin Year One comic book, and he does take on some big hitters. And there is that conflict between him being too young to do what he's doing, but he goes off and he takes out some big hitters. So I think that is definitely a way to go. I agree. I probably wouldn't bring either, like, say, Dick Grayson or Tim Drake in until the probably third act of or the middle of the third movie, but he wouldn't be Robin until like the fourth movie.
Would you limit the films to 6 though? Would you say we need to do 6 films? This is the story we're going to tell. Or would you just say there's so much material? Do you not just say take one film at a time and put
Yeah, that's exactly what I would do. I'd do one film at a time. I'd be like, yo, Arpaz, do whatever indie flick you need to do, but every 2-3 years we're doing a Batman movie till you're 45, bro, because you're still quite a young guy. So, you know what I mean? He loves the role. He clearly enjoys doing it. While he enjoys doing it, sign him up for as many as you can, but don't do it where he's pressured and obliged to do this role. We've made X amount of money. We need the next one out now. No, do it where because this is the thing. Like with Daniel Craig with Bond. Okay, Craig never really wanted to be Bond in the first place, but they invested in Craig, and to the point where they were like, fine, we've got 3 movies that we're going to do with Craig, but the last 2 movies he didn't have to do. He definitely didn't want to come back for the 5th one. He definitely didn't even want to come back for the 4th one. But what it was that they let him go be Daniel Craig, the movie star, the actor, work on different projects, to a point where it was like, okay, he needs Bond. The smart play with his agent and stuff was he needs Bond to carry on. You know what I mean? Because outside of Bond, there weren't that many hits. There weren't that many super hits. You know what I mean? There were like the odd indie film that got a better, higher profile, etc. And that's the thing. We've got an actor that loves being the character, which is a very good thing. But at the same time, you don't want to tire him out early in his career where he is just known for Batman. You know what I mean? As long as he likes it, sign him up for whatever the number is, but work around his schedule. And if you're Warner Brothers, fucking hell, he wants to be in Dune Part 2. There are loads of characters he could possibly play. You need to go, yo, Denny's. If not Dune Part 2, Dune Part 3, just Dune Messiah, just fucking hook my brother up, because guy deserves it. He got 700 million on this Batman film. No, he didn't personally, but they made 7 billion, and it was a gamble. It was a gamble to do this film. Even I was hating on it at one point till I saw the first trailer, but it was a gamble because we're coming off of the Snyderverse, which fair enough was a bit of a hit and miss with some people, but then after seeing what Snyder had in mind for that, come on, man, everyone wanted to see a solo Ben Affleck. It was kind of like, stick with it, pick one. Pick a lane, Warner Brothers. But then, they just went out and made a fucking kick-ass Batman movie that's up there with the Nolan shit. You know what I mean? And that's a very hard thing to do. What they need to do, honestly, Warner Brothers, how they did with Nolan, okay? How they did with Nolan, they need to turn around to Matt Reeves and Robert Pattinson and go, okay, Matt Reeves, do your trilogy, if that's your trilogy, but don't have it be... Turn around to Robert Pattinson. Would you be committed to do more than 3 movies? And if so, maybe you pick the next director. Maybe, you know what I mean? Do you see what I mean? Maybe we get Matt Reeves for a 4th. But don't do what they did with The Dark Knight, where they bowed down to Nolan, because they did that way too much.
Agreed.
And even they knew it was the worst call. But at the same time, the quality bar of the Batman movies were up there. You know what I mean? It's back up there again. So it's a case of they as a studio need to either trust Matt Reeves as a filmmaker or really vet the next guy that they pass the torch to. You know what I mean? With like what their vision is. This is the world we've set up with the Batman trilogy. We want to carry it on, but we want to make sure you're the guy to carry it on. I know that's what Kevin Feige would do with Marvel, but I feel you could have a Bat universe with this Batman. You know what I mean? We thought we were going to get this with Nolan, and we didn't, because he just was like, it's a 3-part saga, which is fine, and it was cool. But I really do think that universe could have carried on. You know what I mean? After Dark Knight,
I agree.
The sky was the limit. I
agree.
But now we're at a reset point where we can do anything. As long as Patterson's in, I'm in, man. So, yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's whoever Patterson's in. And I think it's good to have, like you said, it's good to have a say end goal, but or an end game, like a vision. But I don't like the idea of limiting it. But then again, there's so many things, like you say, you got to keep the actors happy.
And that's the thing. Anything could happen. Anything can happen. And to be honest, people might get fatigued of Patterson. So you do have to kind of protect that, because what you don't want to do is have unfinished storylines after a 3rd film, and then it doesn't do that great at the box office, and then you don't continue it, because that's what a lot of franchises do. They set up all these threads and then don't follow through because it doesn't make them money. So I would say that I would protect the franchise in a sense. I would have that end game in mind to wrap up a certain storyline, even if it's over 5 films. If you want to do a 6th with him and do something else separate, fine. You could start a different thread. But I think you do need to see a thread through, because it's not like Marvel where you can have 20 movies, because they used, how many different heroes to fill those films. You've got one Batman. And to see him in 6 movies, you have to be really invested in him, and that's a lot to carry for one person. So 6 would definitely be the maximum I could see that one person would commit to as well, just for their longevity, the career and stuff like that, because they'll get tired of the character, because they'll start feeling, I've got nothing more I can do with this character. I say I'm Batman, I beat people, and that's it. What else? I've done the Bruce Wayne bit, I've done the bringing up the young kid thing. Now what? So you have to show him a storyline which is going to overarch all these movies, take him on that journey and say, this is where we want you to end up in. And then that's how you get buy-in Pattinson for that kind of length of contract. That's
there'll
my
be
opinion.
different stages, like you say, hopefully, wouldn't there? Like he would become, like you say, Ben Affleck's being the older Batman. You think that over the course of those movies that he would obviously age and things would change.
You could take a 5 year. You could take a 5 year gap after episode 3 before you start doing 4, 5, and 6 and make him the older Batman. You could take a gap. I'm not saying it has to be every 2 years. You could take some big chunks in between some of them and revisit, like Bond. Sometimes you get one every 3 years, then suddenly it's like a 5 year gap or whatever. You could take, a chunk and let him have a break, go off and do what you want to do for the next 5 years, then come back and do your next 3. But it is the continuing story arc, because again, you don't want to fatigue people by having too much of the same person and character every couple of years either. It does work for like Harry Potter, because there was huge fans of that franchise. They did one every couple of years because they had to, because of the age of the kids, and they kept it going, and they did that storyline, wrapped it up in like 8 films. So it can be done. You could argue both ways. You have a set number of films, you fill it out because you've got the story written. But the main thing is you don't do what Star Wars did and just make it up as you go along each episode, and maybe do some threads which the next director doesn't pick up on. The studio needs to be in control. So as creative control, I would have overriding authority over the main storyline to know exactly where we're going to end up.
I mean, what would you say to? Would you just throwing it out there? Would you go for a second Batman movie next, or would you maybe even have a movie that is about one of the villains next?
No.
I would, if I'm going to do anything with the villains, I would do on my streaming services, HBO Max. Like the Penguin is having his own series. Where you can flesh out certain storylines which then feed into the main movies. So you don't have to waste time in the movies doing some of the smaller stuff. So you could do a few bits with some of the characters appearing in there. So for instance, I could have the Mad Hatter show up in the Penguin series, and then he's in the film. So I don't have to waste time in the film doing the whole backstory thing. Maybe there's ways around it, but yeah, I would keep Batman just to the big screen. I don't want to downsize him to be on the small screen, but there are certain villains you don't want to be on the small screen because they need to be the draw for the main thing. But you could definitely have some of the smaller people.
It's interesting, right? Because I was sitting here listening to you guys on this. I kind of disagree to a degree with some of what you said. For one, I would be like, okay, Matt Reeves, you've done this one film. Like, if I have creative control, I'm like, oh, you've done this one film.
Which you do.
I'm like, okay, here's what. I want a commitment of at least 5 more. Yeah, it sounds big, and it's like, you know what? And it's like, oh, if Pattinson ain't up for it, okay, I will find me an actor. I will try, I have creative control. I will find me an actor of equal or better quality who is somewhat older to represent a time jump. I'm like, if we're doing, this is like, oh, we're 2 years in at this Batman, we can make the next Batman film, he's 5 years in. The next one, he's 9 years in, right? We can just, hey, we'll pick an actor of maybe, we'll pick an actor to suit that age period, to who can, and the reason a reason for the difference in acting style we can put down to, well, now he's a little bit more mature, so he acts a little different, right? But ideally, I would just be like, Patterson, here's what we got planned. It's a 5 movie trip. Right, you've done 1. I got 5 more. Here is the overarching story. I lay it all out for him. I know, obviously, people want NDAs and people don't want to know what's coming, but I would like sit him in a room, just him, Matt Reeves, and myself, and be like, here's everything that is planned. Are you in or are you out? Yeah, you can have your time when your other movies, your independent shit. That's your holiday. This is work. You want to go on holiday and make a movie in black and white where you're sitting in a lighthouse? Do your thing, right? Just make sure comfort.
You know what? September. I'll even distribute it for you. I'll distribute it for you. No problem.
Your movies will come out, right? Just make sure September your ass is in uniform, ready to go, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But after another 2-3 movies, fatigue's going to get a kick in, and
Of
that's
course,
why
I mean,
and that's why you need the storyline explained to him to say this is where we're going. So each movie, he's acting in a way where he knows his character is going, rather than just kind of the one by one. That for an actor, knowing where the end game is where they can create more for themselves. But
yeah, because
let's just jump.
All the Sorry, yeah. Could you think of all
that may well have already happened.
Yeah, it may have.
True.
It may have.
Say you're saying year two Batman, he's just starting out, so they may have already discussed like where this is going.
Yeah. Right. Let's jump into some casting. So let's have some casting ideas. So I'll go for some big ones which I had, and then you guys can tell me some of yours. So Mr. Freeze. I had some ideas for Mr. Freeze. So the first one that did come to mind, because I fan casted this way like many years ago, is Bryan Cranston. I think the way that if you take it the way his character is in Breaking Bad, where it's all about the family, he's doing it for his family, there's a reason for him doing these things, but then that ego starts to take over at certain times and he then likes it. I think that could play really well with Mr. Freeze character, because he is a character you're supposed to sympathize with to an extent, because he's doing it all for his wife. But then if he starts enjoying it and starts enjoying the power, then that's the other side of the struggle and stuff like that. His counterpart, Giancarlo Esposito, I can see him doing the role as well. So again, he's in Breaking Bad, he's in Mandalorian. I think he could be great. The other person I had was Ben Mendelsohn. I think he could carry off that really well. He's from like Rogue One, and he played the Skrull in Spider-Man. The other person I had was Paul Bettany. Because if you're going for that kind of distant but compassionate person, the way he kind of played Vision, I was thinking I could see a Mr. Freeze performance kind of coming out of that. And my other one, maybe a little bit left field, but Alfred Molina. I was just like, you know what? He can play the good and the bad. And I'm just like, yeah. So for me, it's probably between Bryan Cranston and Alfred Molina for Mr. Freeze for me. So what about your guys' thoughts?
My first pick is Christoph Waltz.
He
almost
made my list.
I love Christoph Waltz, man. Him definitely, right? If not him, you said Ben
Mendelsohn.
Yeah, I was thinking somebody. It's weird because I think with Freeze, it's like the people you want for Freeze are people who you just like. When you immediately think of this person, you're like, the intelligence is there for you to carry this role. So it's like I thought of Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but also my kind of left field was hold on, let me see if I can get which one right. The Sarsgaard who's in True Blood. The one who was Tarzan.
Oh yeah.
Which one is he? He's the one that's in the Northman or whatever's coming out soon, isn't he? Let me just check which one he is.
Alexander Skarsgård.
Alexander Skarsgård. Yeah.
Him. I think he'd be a lovely Mr. Freeze.
Okay. Lee, did you have anyone else on your list, or is like Neil Soul Neil Thunder?
He's dead.
He's mine now.
What about you, Sach? Thoughts on Mr. Freeze?
Just bring back Arnold, man. No, but
why do I have you on this podcast? No,
but in a similar vein to Arnold, if only this guy went to his multifacial roots and did more films like his earlier stuff, like Knock Around Guys and fucking what's the film? Oh fuck! There was this brilliant film where he's actually acting. This guy finds it very hard to act these days because he's too much of a movie star. Okay. And I think the only time he was ever really acting was when he played a tree saying 4 lines. Yeah, I'm saying Vin Diesel for Mr. Freeze in a more subdued kind of role where he's not hamming it up, giving one-liners, not going the Arnold route, but just being like a normal fucking guy. If you look at his indie stuff before he was famous, he's got it in him and he's bald. He could get the look like the character, no problem. He's just got to separate the ego from the equation, which is really hard when you're doing Fast and Furious movies, and that's your bread and butter now. Now, I know by that, you can see it, and you know what I'm talking about now.
I can. Okay? Unfortunately, I can. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I can't have him going from my family to my wife. I'm just like, no, I just.
That's the natural de-evolution, man.
I don't want him near. I wouldn't cast him in anything that I created. I just do not like Vin Diesel.
Well, you're gonna hate me later on because I had Vin Diesel in mind as one of the people for another character.
He could be thug number 3. That's fine. It just gets wasted. Okay, so let's move on. So on another character I had. Oh, sorry, Sacha, did you have any more?
Yeah, I did.
Go on.
I too had Mads Mikkelsen.
Mm-hmm.
He was actually my top choice, but yeah. And the last one was Daniel Bruhl.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Baron Zemo.
Zemo. Yeah.
Baron Zemo. Yeah. So yeah, but the order was like, the order was.
I actually have him for another character, so I'm going to come back to him.
So my order was Mads, Diesel, and Bruhl.
Okay, cool. Well, sound off in the comments. Who do you think would be your first choice of Mr. Freeze? So let's move on. Excuse me. Let's move on to Harvey Dent, Two-Face. So I put 4 down. So one was Jon Hamm. I think it's his time to take on something like this. I also
don't think he wants
Sterling.
Don't think he wants to. Don't think he wants to because he's been offered a lot of superhero movies and he has outspokenly said he's not interested in superheroes and spandex. He's not interested in any of it. He doesn't like comic book stuff. And that's probably why he's never. Yeah,
he hasn't spoken to me yet. So
that's you'd have to really sell him.
He hasn't seen my vision.
He needs to go one, or maybe you make a film with him, and that's your next film, and then he's like, now he's my friend. Now I might have to do a favor for a friend. Maybe that's how you get him. But
I'll gain his trust. The other person I had was Sterling K. Brown from This Is Us. I just think he is just such a talented actor, and I could see the good and the bad in him. I just think he'd be awesome. Another person I had was Daniel Harvey Dent.
Harvey Dent. Okay.
Harvey Dent. Two-Face. Yeah. For that. So Jon Hamm, Sterling K. Brown, Daniel Kaluuya. Again, just a fantastic actor. And I think he could really eat that up. I think he'd be great as Harvey Dent and then Two-Face. And the other one I had, Adam Driver. I think he could do a great Two-Face. So yeah, I think probably Adam Driver is probably my number 1 pick for Harvey Dent. Nice. So any more for Harvey Dent Two-Face?
Well, I was going to say Chris Pine.
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Yeah.
I think what Sacha just said, Chris Pine, he'd be very good.
Chris Pine, that's interesting. I've seen a lot of people say Matt Damon actually, but Chris Pine. Yeah,
I could see Matt Damon, but I could see Matt Damon as Harvey Dent. But if I had a choice between Damon and Pine, I'd pick Pine. 1, he's cheaper. 2, I think he's a better actor who's just never had his time. Really, like he's always been in stuff, but do you know what I mean? He's never the guy.
After Wonder Woman 84, I can't have him in anything of mine at the moment. He's got to prove himself again. He's got to redeem somewhere else, not on my time.
You know what? Though? For me, I think with Harvey Dent, like when I think of everyone I thought of for Harvey Dent, the issue is Harvey Dent has to be whoever you pick to be Harvey, especially if you're going to flesh it out, and it's going to be like, okay, you're Harvey Dent for 2 movies or for 3 movies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you need to pick someone who is really like old Hollywood charming. My pick, I had
George Clooney.
If he was younger, because I'm like, for me, I have Dane DeHaan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Interesting. James Franco. I know, like, obviously, certain people, you know, it's a bit problematic with them because of their personal lives, but them two. Who's the other one I had? Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
I was actually going to say Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
If you were to go younger,
Mm-hmm.
I got someone someone's really good, but you guys have only probably seen him in one role. I was going to say Alden Ehrenreich.
Ooh. No, he's nice.
Because
I've seen him in more than just Solo.
Because he did that Warren Beatty movie where he was phenomenal in. Obviously, he was
and he was brilliant in Hail Caesar.
Yeah, Hail Caesar smashed it. So, like, to be honest, he's got the look. He's definitely got the chops.
Sorry, which actor are we talking about?
Alden
Young Han Solo.
Young Han Solo. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what? It's weird. Even like in my head, I'm visualizing him with that Han Solo smile, but I'm just seeing him in a suit, and I'm like, yeah, because you like at the first time I see you, you look shifty, but then you grow on someone, and you're like, no, you are as you know, pure and good-hearted as you claim to be. And then it all goes to shit when, you know, somebody throws acid in your face.
Yeah, I mean, he's 32, and Patterson's 35, so it could work if you go for like the similar age thing. So, yeah. Cool. Any other shouts on Harvey Dent? No? Cool. All right, we'll move on. So I then cast Mad Hatter, because that's a character that I would put into the franchise. For him, I had Toby Jones, because I think he's creepy as fuck. Michael Sheen. It's a rap on Toby Jones.
It's a rap.
I had Michael Sheen, Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, and Bill Skarsgård, because again, he is creepy as fuck. So Bill Skarsgård is the one who does Pennywise. Yeah, exactly. But I think Toby Jones, he's just very unassuming. You know, doesn't seem threatening at all in any way, especially physically. And yeah, I think he'd be awesome. So, who else have we? Okay, so what about Robin? Have any of you cast Robin?
Oh, I had two names for your creep list.
Oh, what, Matt? Yeah, go for it.
Yes, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah.
And
but he's just a bit too old.
Crispin Glover.
George McFly. Who's
just as old, but still looks the same. And the reason why I say Crispin Glover is because the guy plays a good creep. Trust. If you see some of the films he's been in,
when he's smelling women's hair.
I saw Charlie's Angels.
Yeah, the Thin Man.
Yeah, he seems like he might be difficult to work with. I don't want to be doing that. But no, there's some good shouts. Okay, so Robin, I had 4. So I had Noah Schnapp from Stranger Things. I think he's a really, really talented actor. Asante Black.
Who's this?
This is Robin.
This is Robin. Okay.
Yeah. Asante Black, he is in This Is Us and When They See Us, the series on Netflix. about the young youths who get accused of like rape. He's a fantastic actor. Jayden Martel, he's from Knives Out and It. Again, really great actor, and he's just probably a little bit older. And the other one I had, just because I love the banter he had and the enthusiasm and the physical side, was Walker Scobell from the Adam Project. I think he could really deliver a good Robin. So that's who I had as Robin.
You know what? I think Robin is probably the most difficult actor or difficult character to cast because, well, for me, it's the most difficult character to cast because I want it to be my Robin would be Damian. I would be Damian Wayne. So I'm like, you have to believe that this child/teenager is a murderer who doesn't know.
I would say Jayden Martel then. Of my list for Damian, it'd be Jayden Martel.
Because I had, but initially, like the first name that came to mind when I think, I want a kid, I want Robin, was Jackson Robert Scott. He's the younger brother in It. He's the one who gets killed, right?
Yeah.
But the older brother, Jayden Martel, he could pull it off. And but looking at him, I'm looking at like the actor now. I think you put the nail on the head with Noah Schnapp.
Yeah.
I think you really hit the nail on the head because I'm looking at this image of him, right? And it's his.
I mean, he can pull off a Damian. Yeah.
Yeah, his IMDb picture, the first picture that comes up. I'm like, you're not Will Byers. You're not that kid. You're not the kid who's always getting,
Yeah, that IMDb picture is good. Yes.
Yeah, that picture of him, that's Damian Wayne right there. In fact, that's Damian Wayne from the third time you see him in my Batman universe. He's grown up and he's like, yeah, I'm Damian. He embraced the Playboy life better than Bruce.
Yeah, because he's 17, which is great because he can play just slightly younger. Because I think the whole point of him being under Bruce's wing and him training him is he's supposed to be younger because he's not an adult.
Yeah.
I know in America it's like 21, but even if he was playing 17, he'd need a guardian. So he's great. He's a great age for that. Great age.
Yeah, I think that's a ground pick. If
Timothy Chalamet.
Too old.
I thought about it, but he's just too old for me.
I mean, like if you had him standing next to Robert Pattinson, bro, they look like they're brothers. They look like their family. Let alone be like, oh,
yeah.
I thought the exact same thing. I was very pro Timothy Chalamet, but then if you've got
he's
Robert
26.
Pattinson, if you got Robert Pattinson as your Robin, as your Batman, it's just not going to add up. If you had Ben Affleck as your Batman, then I think Chalamet is a good shout. He's a good shout, but not if it's Pattinson. I personally think for Robin, I would go with an unknown. I'd get an unknown actor who's a martial artist and actually screen test them against Pattinson and and against probably a veteran actor that you'd have in the movie. Maybe the guy that's Gordon. That would make a good screen tester.
Yeah, or even Alfred.
Or even, Alfred because the scenes would be with Alfred, Batman, you know what I mean? And even like Colin Farrell, you know what I mean? And then see how well they are in the screen test, and then that's the guy. That's how we got Tom Holland. That's exactly how we got Tom Holland.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'd be open to that. And, I'm just talking from people I know at the moment. But for someone like Robin, you'd have an open casting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Because I don't think picking a name for Robin really suits. And how cool would it be if you could get a Robin that could do what Tom Holland does? Because
in that universe,
Robin is an
Nightwing movie.
Exactly. But also, Robin is the circus and the acrobatics and stuff. If you could get someone that age pulling that shit off, you know what I hate in fucking movies, right? Bait CGI, yeah. So if you're telling me I can get in camera fucking shit, Done.
Yeah.
So
yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so who else did I cast? So I also cast Hush, Tommy Elliott. So I had one of the name was Daniel Brawl, so Zemo. Nicholas Hoult. I think he could own it. And then Daniel Radcliffe is sort of a little bit of like a left field kind of thing. I think that might be really interesting. But because of their relationship and because I love this guy and I'd love to see him play bad, is Andrew Garfield. I think Andrew Garfield against Robert Pattinson, that could just be magic. But yeah, so that's why. Did anybody cast Hush at all, or got any ideas? No. And I think the last person I cast was Andrea Beaumont, who would end up being the Phantasm. Anna Taylor-Joy. One name. I'm done.
You just want her in there. You just want her in everything.
I'll cast her in all my movies. Anna Taylor-Joy, Andrea Beaumont, Phantasm. I think she'd have great chemistry on screen with Robert Pattinson, and she could look like she could kill. So yeah, cool. Well, who else has anybody cast?
I had obviously because I'd thought about them being in it. I wanted for Azazel.
Mm-hmm.
That is where I thought of. For Azazel, that's where I had Vin Diesel.
Okay.
Because
when you're saying Azrael, do you mean Azrael?
Yes. Sorry, it's just Azrael.
Right. Okay, Azrael from the Bane trilogy,
yes.
Broken Bat, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. Vin Diesel. Okay.
Because you know what it is? Sacha's right. He can act. He can actually act. I know, obviously, Fast and Furious and Riddick and the majority of films that we see him in, he ain't phoning it in, but he didn't show up to class with, a full pencil case. But when he really needs to, he can act.
It would be sick. Christian Bale.
No, the thing for me, I need my Azazel or Azrael. Sorry, need my Azrael to be a character. I need him to be someone who, if he stood next to Bruce Wayne, or if he stood next to Patterson, you need to just look at him and be like, "Yeah, he's gonna beat your ass."
Michael B. Jordan.
I want the imposing figure. No, because you know what? The more I think about it now, he'd probably be my Harvey Dent.
Oh, Michael B. Jordan.
I could see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But
especially after that. What's that film he was in with Samuel L. Jackson where he's the lawyer trying to get the houses?
Not just cause.
But you know what I'm on about. Yeah.
Mercy. Just Mercy?
Mercy, yeah.
Mercy, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I want somebody somewhat imposing, someone who you like has somewhat of a reputation as an action hero.
Okay.
For Azrael, because it's basically I want you Azrael. For me, my Azrael is a soldier, so I want you to be physically you can do your business, but you're someone who can be easily manipulated. So someone who's like, okay, you believe in the system. So when you get approached by the Court of Owls, you buy into what they're selling because they approach you in a way that you're used to, you're familiar with. This isn't somebody who's like, this is someone who's basically drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on who could be Azrael?
That was the movie I was thinking about with Vin Diesel. Boiler Room. Such a great film. Ben Affleck shows up for one scene, steals the whole fucking movie in that film.
Maybe throw Poison Ivy in there as well. So to be honest, I think he needs maybe a few more women.
Yeah, see, I didn't want to cast Harley Quinn because she's been overdone recently. She needs to stay out of this. But yeah, Poison Ivy, you know, whether even she's just not controlling plants, but she's just this crazy person who's protecting nature, like this weird vegan psycho. I don't know. So who would you have as Poison Ivy?
Anya Taylor-Joy.
No, she's my phantasm. But yeah, she would be amazing as Poison Ivy. Any other thoughts on
Gillian
Poison
Anderson?
Ivy?
Go for someone older. Gillian Anderson. Probably a bit too old, but you know.
Yeah. You can't go from playing
Emma Watson.
Maggie Thatcher to then Poison Ivy. Anybody else?
Well, yeah.
Emma Watson wouldn't be too bad.
Emma Watson, okay.
Have the Harry Potter cast back because you mentioned Daniel Radcliffe. For Emma Watson in there as well.
No.
Actually, the whole Harry Potter cast. Robert Pattinson was in Harry Potter.
Yeah. Technically, Colin Farrell's in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Is he?
Well, technically, because he's in Fantastic Beasts.
He's in Fantastic Beasts.
Oh, yeah.
Karen Gillan.
Wasn't it?
So maybe Karen Gillan or Anna Darmus. Possibly. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Sorry. Jodie Comer. Done. Jodie Comer.
Yeah, good shout.
Done.
Yeah.
She'd be amazing. She is from Killing Eve and The Last Duel, and she is amazing. Free Guy. She would nail it. She'd be my Poison Ivy. Yeah.
I mean, she is slightly old, but Noomi Rapace? The one from...
Yeah, I know which one.
Dragon Tattoo?
Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah.
Okay. Jodie Comer's 29, so I think Robert Pattinson's like 33 or 35, so that'd be pretty good. All right, any other casting? Have you guys got any other characters? No? We about covered it? Cool. So any final thoughts on the Batman and the franchise and, you know, what you would do with it if you had creative control?
Keep in line with the world that you are creating, right? Yes, this is fantastical and we have fantastical characters, but find a way to make these fantastical characters somewhat realistic, somewhat real. Because that's the world that you've presented, and it worked brilliantly for the Riddler. You know, but you know, like the Riddler is somewhat easy. That's light work because there's nothing really fantastical about the Riddler. Let me see you try that shit with you know Mr. Freeze. I mean Hugo Strange. Oh man, that'd be a beautiful Batman film. You know, dealing with Hugo Strange.
Yeah. Oh, I did cast him actually. Right. I had F. Murray Abraham. So he's from Homeland, and he plays Dersard or something from Homeland. But yeah, if you search F. Murray Abraham, he'd be my Hugo Strange.
Who is the main character from Homeland? The man, Damian Lewis. Is that him?
Yeah.
He could have been Hush.
Ooh, yeah. That's a good shout. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, because especially if you see him in like Billions, I think the TV show is called. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Good shout.
I think they need to be smart with, you know, like you said, Kenan, about you know, Freeze, like try and be clever about it. No ray guns and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, try and put a spin on it, their own spin on it.
Yeah,
and,
no, I really like Neil's idea about, you know, if you're not going to go through the cryogenic kind of freezing, it's paralyzing them because you're still freezing them. So I really like that because that's a really nice take on it. I really did like that.
But I also think that they should introduce more than just. I just don't want it to be another Batman versus a villain. It'd be nice to see something different.
I think
there's a couple of low-level villains, or he's caught between two gangs or two villains, and there's some sort of storyline there. But I just don't want to see Batman and then now we've had the Riddler. Now the next one going to be the Joker. Hopefully not, but I just don't want that. We've had that.
Yeah. No, agreed.
I think for me, I agree with you, but I think what I'm afraid of is when I think of every kind of Batman film, and even any superhero, any individual superhero film where there's been multiple villains, somehow, barring maybe Batman Returns, they always seem to just overflood it. Like you look at
I'm not
right, but I think
I'm not saying have just pile them all in.
Yeah.
But even if they were to just show up for briefly, just to show that there's other stuff going on rather than just this one-on-one. That's the only thing.
Like I agree. I think if you had multiple villains, I would love it if they never aligned. Yes. So there's multiple different villains and they're all doing their crimes at the same time. So almost like Batman has to pick and choose. Like you said, he's got to pick and choose between, he's like, which crime is more important to stop? Because then it ties into, you can't do this by yourself. And it ties into maybe, him having a sidekick or Robin, because it's like...
And create the Bat family. Yeah.
Yeah. But even with that, it's like... Because obviously I've mentioned several times I want Damian as my Robin, right? So I'm like, okay, now imagine that Damian is the Robin, and Damian is still kind of like, I think they'll be better dead than in jail. But Batman's like, there's two different crimes, there's two of us, I have to let you go off on your own, but I have to try and trust you to not kill people.
Yeah.
The conflict is beautiful.
No, absolutely. Agreed. And that's where you can tie the Joker in, as the Joker is the person who brings all these people together, but gets them to go off and do their individual things, but at the same time, which creates that conflict. So, yeah. Cool. Well, that's a really good discussion. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Much appreciated. So for the listeners and watchers, let us know in the comments what you thought. You can hit me up on Twitter at Kenan Talks Film, or search Creative Control Movie Podcast. Obviously, if you're on our YouTube channel, you can just drop the comments in below. What do you think of our ideas for the future franchise? What do you think of our casting ideas? But let us know what you think as well. Let us know who you pick, what your picks are, what you'd like to see happen with Batman. Thank you very much for joining us today, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Have you got anything that you would like to discuss or plug? Sacha, I'm looking at you.
Ooh,
you guys,
there's a screen share.
Oh, we've got a screen share going. It's the first
Hello.
Control.
So yeah, we're sponsored by AdStream. You've got over 1,000 games up on this platform. There's loads of stuff to play, from Pac-Man to Mortal Kombat to Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, Bubble, Worms, loads of retro games on here. So yeah, check it out, download it. It's free. There's like a gems currency which you can get, like free gems for like logging in, and yeah, you just play your games.
So yeah, so this is available on PC, but it's also available on mobile, so you can get it for your iOS or Android. I downloaded it. I play my retro games on there. It's great. You got individual challenges that are created as well by the guys at AdStream on it. So yeah, just a fantastic platform. So if you're like in your 40s like us, you'll love this.
Not yet.
Soon. Cool. All right. Thank you very much. Once again, you can check out all our available previous episodes on all the major podcast platforms, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, Google, Podcast Addict, wherever it is. If you'd like independent podcasts, please make sure you check out Good Pods. We're available on there as well. It's great for, again, independent podcasters, and you can do anything from like cooking and fitness and mental health and entertainment. It's got everything on there. So check out Good Pods, again, available on iOS and Android as an app. And that's it. So until next time, peace out.
Peace.
Thank you very much.